All right. So the next section we're going to focus on are microaggressions. So microaggressions are like these like little, oftentimes like again subconscious ways that our racial biases come out that actually affect other people and actually can do harm to other people. And they're so subtle that we oftentimes either normalize it or we're not even aware that we're doing it. And oftentimes when it's brought to our attention, we white people in general push back and get defensive, which we'll talk more about that in the next section as well. But microaggressions, it's important to understand microaggressions, although they can be small, subtle things, they reinforce bigger systems of oppression that ultimately do not only that small subtle thing can do harm to people over time, but they can also reinforce larger systems of harm as well. So microaggressions, to define that, they're the casual degradation, of any marginalized group. Often persons committing microaggressions is unaware they are doing it, and can be used as like a passive aggressive degradation. So often constant, continuous, cumulative for their targets over time can have serious negative impacts as well. So important to understand that, I mean, there are these like subtle things that we do. Oftentimes we're not aware we're doing them, but they're the things that are fueling them are our racial biases and the stereotypes that we absorb. So again, this is another form of racial bias, but this is an action that comes out as something that's harmful to Black, Indigenous people of color, and not just a race thing as well. Microaggressions can also comes out as a sex, a gender thing as well, or a patriarchy thing, comes out as class. So there's a lot of forms of microaggressions as well. But we're just going to be focusing mainly on race for this class. So some of the examples, you have verbal, nonverbal, environmental. Like verbal would be, you speak good English, a white person telling that to a Black person. I've seen that, it sounds so crazy, but I've seen that happen so many times, particularly in like staff meetings when Black, coworkers will speak up, and then afterwards, you'll have like older white, coworkers that will be like, oh, you spoke so well in there, it's just, it seemed like it's, positive. It was this passive aggressive degradation. And then as well as it could be nonverbal things that people do, such as like walking past a Black person and clutching your purse, tightly because you're fearing that person. And it can also be environmental things, as well, like have to drive down a street every day, named after a Confederate general who fought to enslave, your people of your race, or having to, see the Confederate flags or Native American mascots. They're having these, they're subtle but also very racist images and being pushed onto you every day. So again, like, it could be like, actions like, verbally, it could be our nonverbals, and it can also just be the environment that we're living in as well. And there's just like Tumblr out there that's just got all kinds of really great. If you want to see huge lists of different kinds of microaggressions, definitely check out this website. And then, I found this, I really enjoyed these memes because it kind of, summarize it into three different kind of categories. Some of them are microaggressions or micro insults, like, you sound white, you're pretty for a Black girl. How did you get such a good score? How did you get that job? All implying that, like, you sound white, meaning that, you're Black is bad and you're suddenly sounding good and professional and things like that. Or you're pretty for a Black girl, so these minor insults that basically denigrate, Black, they're rooted in anti-Blackness, and they can do some harm, to people that have to hear this stuff, especially because they accumulate. That's another important part. Is it's not just like you hear this once or twice. It's for Black, Indigenous people of color. I mean, they're experiencing this all day long, every day, and that starts to kind of what we call weathering. It starts to really kind of mentally and physically tear down our bodies. Then you have micro invalidations, subtly or obviously denying or attacking the person's experiences, saying, I don't see color. All lives matter. When you say all lives matter, like, even if you like have good intentions, you're literally, dismissing a giant civil rights movement right now called Black Lives Matter that's trying to not only bring value to Black lives, but trying to stop, from them being literally killed in the streets by people that are commissioned to protect and serve us. So, you may think, yeah, you're just doing this, like, oh, we just need to be more kind, all lives matter kind of thing. But in fact, you're dismissing the realities that are happening. So you're doing a micro invalidation. And then the next one's micro assault. So this is when this is more, it's not so subtle, but more of using like racial slurs, saying, avoiding eye contact when you're around people of color or Black Indigenous people of color, so it's more, this will even get to the point where it's more explicit and more intentional. So the Fordham University did this really great project where they talked to a lot of high school kids, and, about, all the different things that they experience, so like a big one with Asian Americans. So you're Chinese, right? You're assuming all Asian Americans are Chinese. You're really pretty for a dark skinned girl. So what do you guys speak in Japan? You don't act like a normal Black person, assuming that, albeit, you can just, as white people, we can summarize and stereotype the actions of Black people. Let's see, Courtney, I never see you as a Black girl. You don't speak Spanish, so what does your hair look like today? Why do you sound white? So all these things, they're subtle, they're passive aggressive, and a lot, I guarantee the white people who said this stuff are probably, it's great, if they realize this, but oftentimes they don't even realize it. And these are things that when you imagine having to experience this stuff, daily, it starts to just, wear people down. So we play, this group actually made this documentary about, the microaggressions that high school kids, experience every day. And we'll play a clip of it.
Oh, you're so pretty for a Black girl. Oh, she has a Jew nose. Oh, your hair would look so good if it was straight. Jews are so cheap. Why are you so cheap? Do you speak good English? How are you an Iraqi Jew? I think the person saying microaggression kind of doesn't really think about it. This person who said it was my friend, and I was just honest, they would say something like that. You don't want to make a big deal about it, but then it's also you just said something that offended me, so I feel like I should speak up. Because they're micro, because they're very subtle, they're small, you feel like you don't have a reason to be upset. You're overreacting, and people even can make you feel that way when you bring it up. They're like, oh, you can't take a joke. You're making too big of a deal of this. Why are you overreacting? Don't take it so seriously. It was just a joke. Chill out. Say oh no, I actually love Black people. I love people of color. They try to just minimize the situation. If someone feels hurt by a microaggression, it shouldn't just be pushed to the side. It definitely has negative impacts and leads to people disliking who they actually are. Those kinds of subtle offensive comments can build up over time, and they can have a deep psychological effect, and they can make you feel bad, and they can make you doubt yourself. We try to just use jokes to make things less awkward or ease social experiences, but it is important because you need to be aware of what you're saying and who you're speaking to. Think of what you say and how it can affect the person you're saying it to.